Good evening. I'm Jackie Curl. I'm chair this year of the Centerville, Washington Diversity Council. Welcome to our third annual Voices and Stories. The Diversity Council's mission is to celebrate and promote an inclusive, diverse, and a welcoming community for people who live, work, and worship in Centerville and Washington Township. Tonight, our emphasis will be on worship. You'll hear 5 diverse stories from local people about their experiences with religion. This is our own twist on reality TV. It's slightly theatrical, and it's about real life. It's reality theater. We're very fortunate to have the participation of CHS theater students, the leadership of our Programs and Education Chair, Amy Russell, and the creative guidance of professional director Alan Bomar-Jones. Thank you for coming. We hope you enjoy the program.
My name is Shannon Heather, and I am Pagan. First, it is important to understand that I define paganism as earth-centered spirituality. I honor the divine in nature in all of its forms.
I'm Gambrel, and I'm a Christian. A Christian is someone that believes that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that He died for our sins, and allows the Holy Spirit to abide within them, guiding their life.
My name is Nilofer Ali Rogers, and I am a Muslim. A Muslim is someone who believes that there is no God but Allah, who is the Creator, and Muhammad is the Prophet of God, and who manifests those beliefs through his or her thought and action.
I'm John Ali Rogers, and I am a Buddhist. Buddhism is a path of practice and spiritual development, leading to the insight of the true nature of reality, through the Noble Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths.
I'm Bob Lewis. I am a humanist, which is a liberal religious faith that is grounded in our understanding of the universe as we know it and our responsibility for taking care of each other and the planet.
My name is Aaron Morris Saari. I was raised an atheist. My father told me that atheists rely on themselves, not some imaginary man in the sky.
First, it is important to understand that I define paganism as earth-centered spirituality, but Allah, I honor the divine
leading to the insight of the true nature of reality.
A Christian is someone that believes that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that He died for our sins, and allows the Holy Spirit to abide within them, which guiding their life.
My father told me that atheists rely on themselves, not some imaginary man.
A Christian is someone that believes that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that He died for our sins,
I define paganism as
the true nature of reality.
First, it is important to understand that I define paganism as
A Christian is someone that believes that Jesus Christ is the Son of God,
and I am Pagan.
And I'm a Christian.
I am a humanist.
And I am a Muslim.
And I am a Buddhist.
I was raised an atheist.
I am a humanist.
And I am Pagan.
And I am a Muslim.
And I am a Buddhist.
I was raised an atheist.
And I'm a Christian.
Chief White Calf of the Blackfeet tribe says, "There are many paths, and how can you know the best path unless you have walked them all? He walked too long on one path, and he does not know there are other paths. And I am 101, and I know that sometimes many paths go to the same place." This is Voices and Stories.
I'm John Ali Rogers. Buddhism teaches that the mind and body cannot be understood independently of one another. Cultivating the mind through meditation is equal to the care of the physical body, which the ancient Buddhists practiced through yoga, Tai Chi, Aikido, and Kata. The first discourse was the Four Noble Truths, that there is suffering and sorrow in the world, that there is a cause of suffering, and there is an end to suffering. And finally, there is a way to the end of suffering. The way to that end is the Eightfold Path, which is right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. For the lay Buddhist, there are 5 precepts that will help you along the Eightfold Path. Not killing, instead love. Not taking what is not given, instead be generous. Avoid sexual misconduct, instead be content. Avoid false speech, instead be truthful and speak softly. And finally, abstain from drink and drugs that cloud the mind, instead be mindful and aware.
My name is Nilofer Ali Rogers. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which means, in the name of Allah, most merciful, eternally merciful. In the Quran, our first knowledge of God, Allah, our Creator, is of mercy upon mercy in this life and again later. And it is through the lens of that mercy that we're shown the path that is known as Islam. The straight way to a place of peace and understanding of God's relationship to all and each of us and our collective and unique connections with Him. La ilaha illallah. These words we speak testify the negation of any other deity except He. Muhammadan Rasulullah turns our eyes and ears and hearts to start with the bringer of God's words, Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, may the peace and blessings of God be upon him. Every guidance, beginning with this testimony, our prayer, our fast, pilgrimage, and charity, every guided word and thought and attitude, mistake and redemption, source of our fortitude, shows us the road we are on. This is Islam.
A long time ago, I married a Jehovah's Witness woman. But my issues and her issues divided our lives, so I let her go with my child. I danced with my demons in and out of relationships for years, until the belief of a true partnership was nearly stolen from my heart. Then I crashed, I burned with those demons. And life smacked me too hard one too many times. With the death of one family member after another, I looked for an answer. I found Buddhism. I studied, I meditated, I got my mind right. With only Buddhist teachings to accompany me, I followed professional opportunity to run a health club here in Dayton.
Chicago. I was a young bride the first time to an American Muslim longer than he was Catholic. 13 years and 3 children later, we parted ways in good grace, and I took my path and that of my children to the great state of Ohio. With the intent to marry and make a family, to carry myself and my little ones through the years, a father, home for them here, a husband, a partner for me, so I could find peace finally with a man who would walk with me through this life, and my children could see how it should be for a husband and a wife. Another fail 2 years later, because I found 2 good people does not always mean solid ground. Enter John, supposed to be my rebound.
At the gym, when I first saw her come in, I thought, I've got to meet that one. So I waited until she scanned her card. Then I checked out her name. Damn, it was hard. I'm sitting there, Nilofer. I'm like, what the hell? I don't need a name. I've got more game than that. So I got my foot in the door, got her to come work out with me on the floor. I'll show what I can do for this girl. I'll rock her world.
I was just looking for some fitness advice, but I was nice when this crazy man shows me his abs. I suppose he expected me to be impressed because he undressed. That's okay. I can play along. I can smile as pretty as anyone to get what I want. Talk in your office? Sure, I'm up for more free fitness tips. But then he changed the game on me, flipped the script, and showed me his life, his heart, his spiritual self. Fascinated, captivated me with his mind and his kind soul, and asked me out for coffee.
So I waited for her in Panera. I won't be wearing my workout disguise, she said. I'm like, well, I hope not. And then she walked in with a scarf on her pretty head. So into her heart and mind I explored. We talked for hours, and I realized I had to search no more because she was the one.
One day, we sat in his car talking, and I said, of course, no one can be everything for the other person.
I believe they can.
And that's when I loved him.
I take you, Nilofer, to be my wife,
I, Nilofer, take you, John, to be my husband,
to have and to hold from this day forward,
for better, for worse,
for richer, for poor,
in sickness and in health,
to love and to cherish.
from this day forward until death do us part. And so we began our journey together, a Muslim
And a Buddhist, and in the 5 years we've walked together, we've hit some major challenges in our partnership. Financial challenges,
serious illness,
reuniting with my daughter Hannah and my son Chris. And I had told Nilofer when we met, I said there may be a knock on the door one day, and
there was Hannah with, I think, John Rogers as my father. Last year, my mother passed away.
and then raising Mary, Ali, and Nejat into their teens, and everyone is striving and thriving.
Through all of these, my trust in God and his plan, trust that he's got our backs and will provide for all of our needs, has carried me through the best and the worst.
And me knowing that everything is transient, nothing is permanent, not clinging to anything worldly, while being mindful of where I am, has carried me through the most difficult times. And when one of us was crashing
And burning.
the other would become solid as a rock, pull the one from the chaos back from the brink of despair.
Mary, Ali, and Nejat, who came with me from Chicago, are raised as Muslim and identify as Muslim. So I'm the primary guide for them in the home regarding their Islamic practice and identity. But we all help each other in that regard. Most mornings, as he's leaving for work, John reminds me to get up and pray the morning pre-sunrise prayer.
Suddenly, having 3 children at home with me really made me call upon my Buddhist practice of compassion and patience. I draw upon my Buddhist beliefs when talking with the kids to remind them about cause and effect, being accountable for one's actions.
We try to live and teach our children to live with universal values and beliefs like compassion,
Accountability, truthfulness, and honesty.
and belief in a greater power like God or universal law, and belief that there is a life after this one.
I love you.
What brought us together? What brought us together and keeps us together is that we have the same destination. We look for peace and enlightenment in this world and the next. We're on 2 sides of the same path. It's a good thing and a blessing to have a partner whose hand you can hold, with whom you can walk mind, body, and spirit through this life and maybe the next. We'll see when we get there.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Engber, and I will be sharing the story of Shannon Heather surviving as a pagan. When you are 19 and full of confidence about who you are and what you believe in, it seems that nothing can rattle you. At least that is what it was like for me. It was 1993. I was young, strong, beautiful, and full of life, opinion, faith, and spirit. I had a belief in myself and that I could do anything I put my mind to. I had never been told otherwise. I didn't know otherwise. Then someone says in hushed tones over a desk in a very busy, open cubicle office, "I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't say anything, but I don't think it would be a good idea for you to list that as your religion. It would not be good for you, for one. You will get severely harassed. Secondly, we don't have that listed as a religion in our database. I'm sorry." Let me start with the fact that at a young age, I enlisted in the military. The whys aren't important anymore. What is important is that I grew quickly to doubt, to be secretive and defensive. and to not let anyone know who I truly was. I was in my first week of basic training. I had a new uniform, new boots, new ways of doing things. I had a new life. The administrative clerk handed me my dog tags with a sad little smile. Religious preference listed as no religious preference. Those dog tags were the first time I had denied who I really was. I sobbed silently. Inside, my heart was breaking as I returned stone-faced to stand in line with my flight. In my day, if you didn't go to church on Sundays in basic training, you got to do extra details around the barracks.
Morning, recruits!
Sir, morning, sir!
Welcome to the United States Air Force. For the next 8 weeks, I am the man you must answer to. I am your TI. That stands for Training Instructor. And from this day on, you will eat, sleep, and breathe the Air Force. Do you understand?
Sir, yes, sir!
This is 0 week. You will have your hair cut in 0 week. You will get your initial shots in 0 week. All your records will be completed in 0 week. You must put into your mind, your military mind, that you are not home anymore. This is your home now. Do you understand?
Sir, yes, sir!
The weekend may or may not be yours to do with what you will. That depends on how we feel. You have performed during your initial week of training. Saturdays you will do your laundry. Sundays we march to church. You have something you want to say, soldier?
Sir, yes, sir! In my religion, sir, I do not go to church, sir.
Did you just hear me say that you are not home anymore, soldier? That this is your home?
Sir, yes, sir.
I didn't hear you, soldier!
Sir, yes, sir!
Did you hear me just say that you belong to the United States Air Force?
Sir, yes, sir!
Anyone who chooses not to go to services can stay here with me and do extra details in the barracks. And believe me when I say, it won't be nice. Do you understand?
Sir, yes, sir!
Lab, base.
That was the beginning of a valuable lesson. Being different definitely has its challenges. If you had anything that was even remotely different from the conformity they expected, you got a spotlight put on you. You were watched and got little comments from what seemed like everyone, which slowly degraded your morale. I saw it happen. I didn't talk about religion, politics, or my past with anyone. I stayed silent, even though I didn't agree with what was going on. Even today, I'm surprised I was left with use of my tongue. So, basic training was over, and I was transferred to my first military base for my enlisted tour of duty. Now that I was out of boot camp, I didn't have to go to church anymore, thankfully. At my first military base for the first couple of years, I kept my faith and beliefs to myself. When I was in my dorm, I privately practiced my personal faith. I honored my faith in the shadows of the night outside, in the bathroom in the wee early hours of the morning, or sometimes under the covers of my blanket with 4 or 5 people just a thin weave away. I refused to give up what my spirit needed to survive. My worship, my beliefs, became my deepest, darkest secret. I wasn't Christian. Also, as a part of the military police, there are no such things as holidays and time off anymore, so there wasn't any Christmas days off or the like. But I must admit, I am a bit hard-headed. Many years later, I stood a very changed, fully grown woman. I had been married, honorably discharged from the military, had someone calling me mommy, and had even experienced divorce. I had been on the other side of the world and back again. Although I was no longer enlisted, the military never fully left me. It helped me grow up, learn responsibility, tenacity, and showed me how parts of the world truly were. The 19-year-old got knocked on her butt, but she got up a stronger woman. She had an undeniable voice based on experience and a backbone that was flexible but refused to be broken. The military may have come to rue what they had created. I had somehow emerged as a woman with a stronger belief in me. With a renewed belief in myself, having survived what I had gone through, I refused to be silent about who I was and my faith anymore. I shared it with others. I practiced my religion openly, not realizing that I would have to fight for my constitutional rights to do so. Not just my rights, but all those like me, past, present, and especially the future veterans who follow my faith. Give to every other human being every right that you claim for yourself. That is my doctrine. Thomas Paine, The Age of Reason. In 2006, I found out that should I die, the Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA, would refuse to put the symbol of my faith on my tombstone. It wasn't an authorized symbol. It wasn't a cross or a Star of David. It wasn't a Buddhist wheel of righteousness, an atom, a crescent star, or a chalice. It wasn't one of the many obscure symbols of many of the world's religions. It wasn't allowed. It was not allowed. Once again, my beliefs, my faith, wasn't authorized. It wasn't recognized. It wasn't real. It was evil, and it wasn't going to be tolerated. Did I mention I'm hard-headed? I joined with many other voices to raise the battle cry. We had served our country honorably. We fought and died next to those with similar and different beliefs because it was the mission and our country that was important. Why didn't we deserve the same rights as they do? Why should a grieving family have to go to court against the VA? The courts held their own country. Why should those left behind have to fight for the rights of those who have died serving their country rather than grieve? It wasn't right. And I had my voice back. No one suggested then that we may have a divided loyalty, that we did not believe in liberty, or that we belonged to a disloyal group that threatened the freedoms for which our forefathers died. John F. Kennedy. I wrote to every politician I could. I made phone calls to their offices as well as the VA. I attended rallies and protests. I passed out informational brochures about everything. For instance, the lawsuit that initiated the battle for the pentacle to be placed on our tombstones was a result of Sergeant Patrick Stewart, who was killed in action in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom when Taliban terrorists shot down the Chinook helicopter he was in. His family's fight for his rights started more fights. I stood at the 4th of July parade with a sign that said, "Ask me how our heroes are being denied their rights and freedoms." Very rarely did I come across someone whose discrimination was so great as to deny someone who had died their last wishes. Most Americans I talked to were amazed to know something like this had happened and was happening. I filled page after page of petitions to help with the legal cases that were going on. At night, I let the 19-year-old inside cry. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The Constitution of the United States of America. Finally, on Monday, April 23, 2007, after an exceptionally long religious freedom struggle in the court system, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs finally added the pentacle to its list of emblems of belief that can be included on the grave markers it issues to honor deceased U.S. military veterans. It finally allows the pentacle, a 5-pointed star surrounded by a circle, signifying the divinity of the world around us and how it is all connected, to represent a faith they refuse to acknowledge. Oh, and did I mention I am hard-headed? The fight isn't over after all. My name is Shannon, and I am a U.S. veteran, and I am a pagan.
I guess you can call me a heretic. You know, someone who departs enough from traditional ways of thinking to be regarded as controversial. I started out being a heretic when I was raised as a Mormon. Mormons were considered heretics. I was even more of a heretic because I belonged to a small splinter group of Mormons who didn't believe everything the Mormons did. We were a small group of reorganized Latter-day Saints in the Washington, D.C. area. We would drive into Washington, D.C. to the worst section of the city to hold church at the Knights of Pythias Temple, and we had to clear out the beer cans before we could worship. I have to tell you, even though we came from all over the Washington, D.C. area to church, these fellow church members were wonderful people, kind, gentle, generous, and committed in their relations with each other. I learned how important human relationships are when you are a heretic. I grew up expected to believe the story of 15-year-old Joseph Smith back in the 1830s being visited by an angel who told him not to join any of the existing churches, that he was going to restore the true faith and build the kingdom of God on earth. You may remember the story of the angel leading Joseph to a hill in upstate New York and showing him gold plates buried in a box and telling him to translate the plates and publish what came to be known as the Book of Mormon. And so I grew up as a supernatural, quasi-Mormon heretic. I believed in a 3-story universe of heaven, earth, and hell. I even preached my first sermon when I was in high school about storing up treasure in heaven where moth and rust do not corrupt. Because I was the only member of my church in a high school of 2,300 students, I knew that I was different from everyone else. It may be that these early years helped me later to be able to stand apart from the crowd, to be a different kind of heretic. But I was growing restless. My high school girlfriend, who was also an outsider, was really bright, and she challenged my fundamentalist thinking. I was the yearbook photographer, another way of being outside and standing apart. And she and I met in the dark room. You know, turn out the lights and see what develops. When I went away to college, my 3-story universe ideas were constantly being challenged. and I was learning the values of questioning and critical thinking. I was still deeply religious, but I was changing. In fact, in college, I became an existentialist. I learned how being an outsider was okay, and that what was important was to be in touch with myself in an authentic way. No one else could take my bath for me. The meaning of life was not to be found in a book, but in deep personal experience. I learned what it was like to experience the death of God, the loss of any eternal meaning, and any divine guiding hand in my life. My experience at the University of Chicago studying for the ministry was transforming. One of the most respected church historians helped me understand that my Mormon faith was really a 19th century creation, influenced by the religious ferment of the time, much like other religions that were fomented then: Universalism, Christian Science, millenarianism, transcendentalism, the Shakers. I learned so much about the books of the Bible and other holy texts that they were human creations intended to address the cultures of their time and not the inerrant Word of God. And I was learning so much about science and evolution and how one could understand both oneself and the world as part of an evolving universe. And so I became a liberal heretic, a humanist and a naturalist, instead of a theist and supernaturalist. I pitched the three-story universe and divine intervention and have never had to go back. But I didn't become anti-religious. My religion deepened the more I took the world seriously, the more I came to understand and appreciate that we human beings carry a heavy weight of responsibility for the world as it is and can be. From my childhood religious upbringing, I retained the idea of building the kingdom of God on earth, what we call now the beloved community, of working together to make the world a better place for everyone. I spent many years helping to desegregate the St. Louis public schools. It's interesting, when I was growing up in segregated Virginia, I went to all-white schools, and yet my best childhood friend was Robert, who was black. Having Robert as a black friend in those early years may have helped me to value diversity and the beauty of the human community. And I know that Robert and I got the same kind of whoopings by parents when we got out of line. It was nice to know. Later, I served as the executive director of an AIDS organization in Detroit, trying to stem the HIV/AIDS epidemic and help those living with the disease survive. One of my gay staff members reminded me regularly that he had already lost 90 of his friends and was expecting to lose more. So I learned that bad things and good things happen to both good people and bad people, and that we share some responsibility for making things better. My fiancée back in the 1980s was raped and murdered by a very bad person. And I lost my son, Alan, to AIDS when he was 32. I know that the world doesn't necessarily treat us kindly. I do not believe that God's in his heaven and all's right with the world. Nevertheless, I hold on to the very real Christian values, particularly compassion and justice seeking. I am now a member of the Unitarian Universalist faith because it accepts me now for the humanist heretic that I am. My sermons now aren't about storing up treasure in heaven, but about making the most of this world and doing social justice to heal a broken world. Here in Dayton, I've been working very hard to bring Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, and Muslim congregations together to work on important social justice issues. It's called community organizing, what Barack Obama did in Chicago. This is what it means for me today to build the kingdom of God on earth. So I know the reality of death. I know that death is a part of life. I know that for my fiancée and my son, that I will never see them again. I understand that. So you may think that based on what I've said that I don't look on the world as a good place to be. On the contrary, I am in awe of this world. There is no other place to be, and I joy in living. We live on such a beautiful planet, and we have done so much to give our lives meaning through the arts and culture, and particularly in terms of human rights and respect for the planet. We have done so much to give a more positive shape to our living together. I have a wonderful partner, Alice, and I thrive on the deep and rich and wonderful relationships that I have with my friends and my colleagues. Life is good, even as a heretic.
This was my earliest memory when I was about 4 years old. And, my dad would drink a lot, he cussed a lot, and they would get in arguments, my mom and dad would. And my earliest memory is actually standing in front of that door and telling Dad that he wasn't going to hurt Mom. As if I could really do anything about it at 4 years old. But something weird happened that year as well. I went to vacation Bible school, and I really, really enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. My parents thought, we should take him to a church. We should take him somewhere. It's probably a good thing to do. So the very first church we went to, the very first night, it was a Pentecostal church, and they ended up getting saved. So what did that mean for me? I got a new set of parents, basically. What happened was my dad stopped drinking, and he stopped cussing, and they stopped arguing as much. Everything pretty much stopped right after they got saved. And to me, that was magic. I was like, wow, I got a new set of parents. That's really cool. So we started going to church, and we went to church all the time. I mean, there were services on Wednesday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday night. So we were constantly there. Also, in a Pentecostal church, I was raised in stuff like speaking in tongues, being slain in the Spirit, basically being hit by the Spirit so hard you fall over. So I was raised with that kind of stuff. When I was in my teens, I became best friends with the pastor's son. And we used to hang out all the time, and we'd have sleepovers and stuff like that. I started, probably in my early teens, getting a little bit of a crush on him. which I didn't know how to handle that. It was, it was weird. I knew I was getting closer, but I didn't call it gay or homosexual at that time. I just knew that I had some really strong feelings for him. So when I was around 18, the pastor came into the church with a rug. So he announced to the church basically that he had gone into a department store, and God said there's going to be a sale on rugs. And you are to buy one of these rugs. It's going to become the holy rug of the church. And so he did. At first I wanted to laugh because, first of all, I didn't know if he was really serious or not. And secondly, it was an ugly rug. It was ugly green. And so I thought God could have done better than that. I mean, for a holy rug. So what they did was they anointed the rug, and they would lay it out on the floor. And if you were sick, you would stand on the rug. People would gather around and pray for you, and you could be healed. So they would have prayer sessions like this, and people would line up to have this done. So around this time, I also felt like I wanted to come out of the closet. I didn't want to tell my parents. I thought I was going to be thrown out or something. So I saw the pastor and his wife like a second set of parents to me because of being best friends with the son and everything. So I told the pastor's wife, and she proceeded to tell me that I was possessed by the demon homosexuality. That didn't go over really well with me. I didn't feel like I was possessed, that there was something like that in me. So I thought, okay, well. The next service, though, they were having one of those services where people were standing in line getting prayed for. And the pastor, he motioned for me to come on up. I reluctantly went up, and he stopped the music. So it was really quiet, and everyone's looking. And I'm standing on this rug, and he says that Ray was possessed by the demon of homosexuality. And I was horrified. And so I stood there, my eyes open as they prayed for about 15, 20 minutes. And I just thought, I'm not coming back. This is it. I'm walking out. And that's exactly what I did. I walked out and left the church. And when I did that, I also left Christianity pretty much. I went wandering around looking in different religions because I felt like I wanted something spiritual in my life. So I knew a friend that was a Wiccan priest. I studied under him for a little bit. I looked at Buddhism, Hinduism, and different things. I eventually did fall into Buddhism and stayed in that for several years. I even received a Buddhist name, which was Kunchog Yeshi. And then shortly after, I had to write this down, my teacher's name was Drupal Thinli Ningpo Rinpoche. It's a mouthful. And the whole time that I even went on this search, after I left the church, I still believed that there was a God. I believed that there was something running everything. And I believed in the teachings of Christ, and I thought he was a really cool guy. He's got some good teachings. And every once in a while, I would feel a little bit of a pull back towards Christianity. So I was a Buddhist up until just about 6 months ago. And I saw an article in the Dayton Daily, and it was an article about a local artist named Matt Berge. And it was about his faith and how he used that in his artwork. So I felt something really strong in that article. And I was like, I want to talk to this guy. So I contacted him. We had coffee, and he shared his faith with me. He even brought one of his art pieces to demonstrate, basically. So I felt really strongly with that, and he invited me to church. This church was Apex, so I went to the service that Sunday morning, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the preaching. And he said, we have house church, which is basically when they break up into groups of like 10 to 15 people in people's homes. And it was that night. So I went ahead and I went to house church with him. And at that service, something really weird happened. I started feeling the Spirit, I guess you could say. They started sharing their faith with me. They started sharing verses from the Bible. And I started feeling a pounding in my heart, really, really strong. And I started shaking. And I just felt something powerful there that I hadn't, felt in like a long time, since I was 18. So that night, I accepted Christ into my life. And has it been easy since then? No, not really. First of all, Apex is a pretty conservative church, and they do believe that homosexuality is a sin. And so people ask me, why do you go to the church like this? Well, I feel like God has brought me to this church, so I'm going to be there. If God takes me somewhere else, that's where I'll go, because I want to do God's will. And that's how I feel. And I want to thank you, because that's my story.
By the time I was born, in the mid-1970s, my parents had long since left the church. They decided to raise their 3 children as good Western secular humanists, or in a word, atheists. That doesn't mean that I was unaware of the basic Christian story. I knew that Jesus was born so Santa could bring me presents, and he died so the Easter Bunny could bring me candy. And I thought it was quite wonderful of Jesus to do this for me. I was also aware of other aspects of Jesus' story. One of my earliest memories is jumping up and down on my sister's bed and listening to
Jesus Christ, who are you, what have you sacrificed? Jesus Christ, superstar, do you think you're what you say you are?
Yes, the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar. Little did I know at that time the indelible impact Jesus Christ Superstar and the story of Judas Iscariot would have on my life. When I was a year old, my paternal uncle committed suicide. He was paranoid, schizophrenic, but this was kept from me by my parents, by my family. At this time, there was a lot of shame around suicide. And so my parents told me that Uncle Fred had died of cancer. And this is a story that held until I was about 13 years old, and suddenly family members began to say the word suicide. By the time I got to 16, I knew that all was not as it appeared, and I asked my dad, please, tell me what happened to Uncle Fred. My father wouldn't do it. So I wrote and starred in a one-act play about a young man dealing with the suicide of his brother. He has a suicide note in his hand, and he doesn't know if he's going to read it. It was my way of reaching out to my father because I knew what it was like to have a brother's love. My older brother, 7.5 years my elder, was the world to me. Stephen was the epitome of cool. He had an earring, he rode a motorcycle, he played a guitar, he wore a leather jacket. I mean, look at him, he's devastatingly handsome. And I wanted to be like Stephen. Stephen was my world, and I couldn't imagine the pain of losing my brother. Stephen never saw the play, but he read it. And I remember a spring afternoon, he finishes reading the text, and he looks at me and he says, "Brother, I promise you, that's never going to happen to us. We will never commit suicide." Little did I know that 10 years later, that memory would become all too chilling, all too prescient. My brother did happen to see me in one play that year. Yes, yes, I was cast in
Jesus Christ, who are you, what have you sacrificed?
Of all parts, I was Pontius Pilate. At time, you might call it a coincidence. Now I see the hand of divine providence. I graduated from high school and I went off to college, and as luck would have it, my freshman year at Kalamazoo College was Stephen's senior year. He had taken a few years to get his education. And that was quite a magical year for us as brothers. Our relationship grew in a maturity we hadn't experienced before. I decided I was going to rebel against my parents, my atheist parents, by becoming a religion major. My brother was more dutiful and followed in the footsteps of our mother and studied English. I remember spring semester. Stephen was preparing for graduation. We were watching the 10 Commandments on this little 13-inch black and white TV with the rabbit ears. And we talked about our lives, how they were going to unfold, and how we were both going to go to graduate school, and how we were going to find partners. We were going to settle down. We were going to raise kids, and we just knew that we would live next door to one another or within a couple of blocks. It was an amazing time. And then things began to change. Stephen returned home, and suddenly he became paranoid. Suddenly he became angry with wild mood swings. Suddenly, Stephen was no longer the person we knew. By the time I reached the age of 20, I had to cut my brother out of my life. While he was never violent, he lashed out verbally at the two people closest to him in his life, me and our mother. Then, one cold winter afternoon, I received a phone call. Your brother has been admitted to the mental health unit at Green Memorial Hospital. He attempted suicide. I remember seeing Stephen in the hospital bed, bandages on his arms, and realizing that the man I had known the past few years had disappeared years ago and had been taken over by this new illness that was finally diagnosed, paranoid schizophrenia. And at the age of 21, 22, I realized I need to love this man for the sake of loving him. I can't expect anything in return. The brother that I dreamt with, the brother that I had grown with, was gone. Yet there was still a human person here. And I'd like to say that in the 4 years remaining in Stephen's life that I was a dutiful brother and that I did everything I should, but I didn't. I was young and I was confused, and we all tried. Stephen most especially. He took the medications they told him to take. He went to the therapy appointments they told him to go to, but he was a zombie. He wasn't the person we knew. And then things changed again on October 12th, 2002. It was a Saturday. My parents had left to go on a business trip, and I was supposed to look in on older brother. And I call him up Saturday afternoon because we're supposed to get together Saturday night, and I decided I didn't really want to do it. And I say, hey, Steve, is it okay if I don't come over tonight? Oh, yeah, Aaron, that's fine. I've got movies to watch. I've got things to do. And I thought to myself, wow, I have not heard Stephen this happy in years. So I hung up the phone, not knowing it was the last time that I would ever speak to him, the last time anyone in my family would speak to him. I called all day Sunday, no answer. I go over Monday morning thinking I got to have some FaceTime with him or mom and dad are going to think I'm a bad little brother. So I show up at the house and I open up the door, and I knew. There was dog feces all over the floor, and Stephen would never allow that to happen. Over the course of the next 3 days, the police looked, my family and I hung up flyers. Our almost entire village of Yellow Springs knew that Stephen was missing. And on the evening of that third night, I found myself in my home watching
Jesus Christ, who are you, what have you sacrificed? Jesus Christ, superstar, do you think you're what you say you are?
"We found your brother," the voice said. "I'm sorry, we found your brother's body in the Ohio River." I don't remember much after that. I remember letting out a scream like a wounded animal, and for 30 seconds, feeling the most intense sense of loss and pain and anguish I had ever experienced. And then suddenly, I felt a presence. I felt a love. I felt that I was not alone and that Stephen was okay. For the first time in my life, I experienced the presence of God. And the irony is that at the time I had just begun graduate work in religion because I was going to be the next Richard Dawkins. I was going to be the next Sam Harris. I was going to be the next great atheist thinker to show people how belief in God is asinine. In that moment, when I was not trying to intellectualize who and what God is, God's grace saved my life. Over the course of the next years, I wrote a book on Judas Iscariot and the issue of suicide. I've traveled around the country and internationally talking about Judas, talking about suicide. 2.5 years ago, I walked through the doors of Cross Creek Community Church in Centerville, Ohio, and met the most wonderful pastor, the Reverend Dr. Mike Castle, who sensed the call in me. And now I am a licensed pastor in the United Church of Christ, heading toward full ordination. I serve as a youth pastor, and yes, I am a professor of theology at Xavier University. I am a Christian. I am a Christian because of the suicide of my brother. I am a Christian because of the story of Judas Iscariot. And I am a Christian because of
Jesus Christ, who are you, what have you sacrificed? Jesus Christ, superstar, do you think you're what you say you are?
First, it is important to understand that I define paganism as earth-centered spirituality, but Allah, I honor the divine,
leading to the insight of the true nature of
A
reality.
Christian is someone that believes that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that He died for our sins, and allows the Holy Spirit to abide within them.
That is grounded in liberal
My father told me
understanding
that atheists
of a
rely on
universe
themselves, not some imaginary man.
A Christian is someone that believes that Jesus Christ is the Son of God,
and I am pagan.
and I'm a Christian.
I am a humanist.
And I am a Muslim.
And I am a Buddhist.
I was raised an atheist.
I am a
And I am
humanist.
pagan.
And I am a Muslim.
And I am a Buddhist.
I was raised an atheist.
And I'm a Christian.